All right, now with our transfer, remember that you are just taping it halfway onto the back of your gray piece of paper, and this you will leave on all the way until you are completely finished with your drawing. The first step is to transfer all of your lines, so you're just using a regular pencil to trace all of these shapes. When you trace the value scale, make sure that you are using a ruler to go all the way through those lines. It makes it neater and faster for you. Now, once you've done that, you're tracing the features like the eye, the nose, the mouth, the edges of the face, but we are also outlining where the values change color. So notice that like right here along this bottom edge where it kind of like sinks a little bit deeper into her skull right there, it gets darker. That's like a little bit of a value change. So we would outline that space. There are more subtle ones like this where it's kind of changing on the edge of her cheek, and then along here we can kind of see a little bit of roundness coming out through here. So I just gave myself little outlines wherever I saw the values were changing. Now for these next parts, as you're working, you must have your lesson guide out and next to you because all of these steps are listed right there. Now we are going to begin with our stepped value scale. We're going to start by writing 10, 9, 8, 7 in black. Then we're going to come in with our pencil to remind ourselves that we do not draw this number 6 with black. We are just letting the gray tone paper show through. Then we are going to write 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Now we're going to start with our white. We always begin with the white pastels. For this entire process, we are just starting with the white always. Now I'm going to only fill in half of this value scale so it goes faster so that I can get through the demo a little quicker. You of course will fill this whole box. Now for 0, we are filling it completely solid. Now when I am stretching a span that I know I have to have, like this is going to be the lightest value, sometimes I'll do the most filled in and then the lightest I can color. And I'll do both of those so that then it's easier for me to say, okay, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes to bridge the gap between these. So then this one is going to be very filled in, but just not quite as filled in as the one before. This one I'm pressing a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. And we just want to have that nice smooth transition out from this dark, or I guess not darkest, but the most filled in value. And then we are fading all the way out to value 5. Now you are going to receive a Q-tip to do this step. It's going to look like this. You will put your piece of masking tape in the middle so that you always have this. You only get one from me, so please don't lose them. But you're going to take this Q-tip and then you are just blending out all of these values, starting with the lightest one or the one at the end, and then working your way back. And remember that you never touch either 10 or 0. So we want to leave those ones alone. We are not touching those with our Q-tip so that they stay just that pure white or the pure black. Now we are going to come in and add our darkest value. So you can see we're at this picture right here. So we're going to come in for value 10 and we're making this super solid black section. And I am of course only filling in part of this. You will fill the whole thing. So we are filling in that solid black. Blow away your dust and make sure that you have filled it all the way in. Occasionally there are spots where you think it's filled, but it's just a crumb. Now I'm going to hop down to value 8, and this is going to be the last one that I make with my actual charcoal pencil. So I'm just going to barely touch my paper here. I am coloring as lightly as this pencil will possibly allow. So I'm just allowing it to barely even scratch the surface here. We have to color so lightly because we want to have that full range of values. So here's our lightest one. Oops, I filled that the whole way through. But now we're going to fill our medium tone so that we have a clear, dark, medium, and light section. Now from here, I am going to clean off my blending stump. That's always our first step. And I am going to blend in my 8 value. And then I'm going to take that value, so I only blend the 1. I don't go all the way up to 9 and 10 because that'll make my blending stump too dark. But now I'm gonna hop down to 7 and pressing so lightly, I'm just like barely touching this. And then 6, we don't touch it all. We just leave it. It is just the gray paper. So that's the next step, is to just leave value 6. Now, when you are ready to move into the sliding scale, you will literally copy everything that we just did. So you start all the way down here with white, you fill it in up to 5 and let it fade out. Then you blend it away, except for the last one. Then you come in for this section and you add in the 10, the 9, and the 8, and then blend it for 7, leave it blank for 6. Okay, now this next step I would like to show you is filling in the white values. So you can see that we start with adding all of our white areas. And when you're doing this, you must take your reference photo and you are folding it and placing it as close to this image as you can get it. And you also want to have this image directly next to you as you're working so that you can make sure that you're copying these values. Now we are going to start with the forehead, which is like a solid white. So you can see this is just like pure white up here, and it doesn't really start to fade to the gray until like midway above her eyebrow. So I am going to take this and fade it as I'm working my way out, and I can see this little indication, this little line where I was like, yeah, okay, it changes value there. So as I reach that point, I erase that line so that I don't have like a dark line underneath my white values. So you have to erase those value lines as you come to them, except for, of course, like on the main features. So I wouldn't have to erase the eye line because I'm basically just filling that in. Now, I'm adding this little bit of white kind of going on top of her eyebrow. We also have some underneath her eyebrow. All of my makeup people out there, you know we always add that little highlight to accentuate your brow bone. That is like an actual part of female, like a structure, like what we have on this surface is highlighted. Now we are going to hop over here and we're adding just this little bit of the highlight right on the nose. We're adding a little bit of the highlight right at the end of the nose. And then we've got like this tear duct that's pretty light. We have a little bit of lightness on the eyelid itself. And then this section right underneath our shadow is actually pretty solidly white for like a triangle in the middle of her face. And then we are just like slowly fading this out. And we're going to come back in with our Q-tip and blend this away so that it's a little smoother. So at this point, we are just coming through and adding all of the areas where we are adding like a solid patch of white. So we've kind of wrapped around this little section of her lips. We are leaving the features themselves pretty much empty except for this little highlight that goes once through her lip right here. And then on the eye itself, we are going to come in and fill in the white that's on the left. But here's the weird part. People always get this wrong because it's literally called the white of the eye. People are always like, oh, it's just white. It's not just white. So it is barely white. Over here, we are going to add a smidge, like the tiniest little triangle, and then we're leaving the rest to fade out to black. Now, the next step is to take your Q-tip so that you don't have any black charcoal on it, and you are just going to go through and smooth out the texture of all of these white spaces. And we kind of want to like fade it out, not too much. We don't want to like fill too much of our paper. That does become problematic, but we want to have like a soft edging wherever the white ends. So we're just going over the top of this and first smoothing it out so it's nice and even and not like patchy in any way. But we're also trying to get rid of like the end point, like where you can see that it stops, because that's where we need to blend it out and help it to reach that softer looking edging. So we're going around the outside of these shapes and helping the outside of them to look softer and helping the inside to not have like patches. So we're just using heavy pressure on our Q-tips to really blend that out. And then you can just take a finger and just kind of clean up any of the excess white that you've blended. Now I am going to pause here and I'm going to call you guys back to show you a couple of the features once I see that I've got a few students that are ready for the next steps, but I don't want to overwhelm you with too much at once. So